in PHP we have something called variables also. Variables in JavaScript we used a called var, and then we declared, for example, name is equals to this Zeeshan. Okay. However, once you are in PHP, instead of using this thing called, instead of using this variable tag, we just simply give a dollar sign with a name. That's it. This dollar basically means it's a variable. So you don't need to write the var in PHP. In JavaScript we do, but in PHP we don't. In PHP it's almost the same, however with only the inclusion of what we called this dollar sign. Now this is a variable equal assignment operator with a string Zeeshan. This automatically becomes a string data type. I can come here, I can say dollar number is equals to, and then I give a number. Now this automatically becomes an integer number. Got it? Similarly, I can give any other thing, and in order to print the data, we write echo, for example, dollar name, all right, dollar name, semicolon, Control S, I save it. If I come on my browser, see there is no output. When we were doing HTML or just CSS or JavaScript on my brackets window, as soon as we save it, because it just requires the output on the browser and browser reads the code directly and processes it, they were able to display the output here. But now there is no display here. Because we are doing server-side programming, for every change you have to send the request back to the server, and then server will respond. So every time you will have to hit a refresh. So every time hit a refresh, basically we are sending a request back to the server that refresh the contents of this page. The server will again read this PHP file, see if there is any change or inside it, and then based on whatever operations we have performed here, will generate a new HTML output to be displayed here. Because this is an HTML output, I can come here and I can say br, which is HTML tag in fact, or in fact I can do, for example, bold as well. And let me just close the bold here. It's not necessary for now, but let's do that. I Control S, save it, come back to my window, nothing happens, because I need to send the request again for the page to refresh. So I click on refresh. Now you see it's on the new line and it's bold. So even in your variables, you can write HTML. You can echo the HTML back on the window. Echo is a statement that is used to print the output on our window, on our web page. In JavaScript, we use document.write to do things. In PHP, you just simply use echo word, nothing else to it. Okay. In JavaScript, we had a variable as a variable name. Now in PHP, we just use a dollar sign. Same dollar sign is used here. Okay. Similarly, you can do mathematics as well. So I can have, for example, number multiply by, make sure this is semicolon, number multiply by, for example, 45. And then let me just create another variable, ans is equals to number plus 45, right? So now I declared another variable, dollar number multiplied by 45. Now dollar number basically means this is a variable again a container that holds a particular value. In our case, this number will hold this particular value. Okay. In our case, this holds a particular value. So this number or this value has been saved in a variable called number. This number is now multiplied with 45, answer is printed. Similarly, I can echo the answer back, echo dollar ans semicolon. I come back here, again no change, I hit a refresh, now answer is printed. Okay, so this is variables. Using variables again is absolutely simple as any other language for that matter. You can create, for example, dollar sign is equals to, for example, single quotations a semicolon. This now becomes a character type. You can use that as well. You can use integer. You can even use a boolean for that matter. Boolean means that now we can come here and I can use dollar bool is equals to, for example, true. So now this is a true variable. Okay. this will contain value called true. We can give it false and so on and so forth. Then we can perform certain operations on the variables as well. For example, I can use direct variable value is equal to 7.2 semicolon. Then I can say echo bracket start echo. In fact, instead of bracket, let's just use something called get type method and use $value value. Okay. Now get type, what it will do is it will get the type of this particular variable and echo the output. Let's just see the result. So if I come back here, where is my browser? Control S, sorry, nothing happens. Hide floating panel. You need to hit a refresh and the type is displayed. In this case, double. Okay. So you can check the type by simply using a built-in method or a function called getType. GetType is a function that is built inside PHP library. We use this method to find the type of this particular data. Similarly, I can use, for example, echo get type type, and let me use, for example, cha with a $sign. If you don't use dollar, Java PHP will not understand what it is. So in PHP, $sign is important, and we specify it with this thing. Now again we hit refresh and it tells me that's a string type. Okay, so single quotations again is considered here as a string. If I use echo type, for example, echo, and then inverted quotations, we give it a BR for a new line. Then I give echo get type $number semicolon. Come back here, hit a refresh. Now it's an integer. So the number that we specified integer. This is again a string. Even the character single quotation marks is considered as a string. This is a Boolean type. This is a double type. So you can use a method called getType to set a type of a particular variable. Similarly, you can do one more thing as well. You can use a method called setType. For example, let's use $VALS is equals to 20. What is the date today, right? 22 June. Today is, I think, 7th June, right? So 7th July, and I can say 2020 semicolon. Okay, so this is a string. So if I use this method here, echo get type, and then I can use $VALS semicolon. Semicolon. Control S, hit a refresh, I get a string. Let's just use okay. Now we did some changes here. I want to print this variable here in JavaScript. We used to add a plus. I think here is a dot. Yes, string. Okay, sorry. In JavaScript, in order to join or concatenate a string with another value, we used to have a plus sign. So for example, if this was a JavaScript, I would write docu document dot write, and inside document dot write I would write a string. This is a string, and then add a plus, and then, for example, variable name. Okay, so what this will do, it will take the variable name, the value inside this variable, and join it with this string, and the string will be printed. However, when we are in PHP, we use the word echo. We give a string, but we don't use plus, we use a dot operator. In PHP, we don't use plus. In JavaScript, we use plus. In Java also, we use a plus operator to join two strings. in PHP, we use a dot operator. See? So once you save it using the dot operator, what this will do is it will combine these both strings together. So now BR, I can even use a bold. I can use, for example, paragraph tag. I can use, for example, styles, CSS styles within this string. Come back here, hit a refresh, and now it's a string. Okay, so this string is this something. So once we create a variable, we give it a type, now it becomes a string. The next thing that we were trying to do is that we can change the type. So for example, in this case, what we can do is we use a method called setType. GetType, again, a built-in method that will tell me the type of a variable. We can use a method called setType that will, what it will do is, we say go inside this variable called variable s, comma, and set it to integer, integer. Okay. Now what we did, we changed the type of this variable from string to integer, and let's reprint this. Okay. And now the type is control S. Because we made the changes here, we come back into code, there is no update. You need to hit refresh. Every time we hit refresh, the data is sent back to the server. The server reads this file again, processes it, generates an HTML output that is presented here. So every time you are accessing, refreshing, a request is being sent from a client to the server, in this case localhost. The localhost reads the PHP file, processes it, generates an output, and sends us a response back to the client, and then the client displays the response on the browser. Now, previously it was a string, it's an integer now. So what we did here is we changed the type from string to integer by using a method called setType. Very rarely used, but it is used. Two methods that we use to check the type of a variable or to change the type of a variable. That whether your data type is integer, or byte or short or float, we use to check based on that. And then we can change the type based on whatever we want to do. Second thing we can do within what we call PHP, which is very interesting, is that you can use echo, you can use a string, you can create a paragraph. Let me use a style inside this paragraph because we have this. So let me use this. Color, colon, I think red should do the trick. Okay, the string starts. Let's just make it bold as well. Now I want to print the value of this variable. Remember, we use a dot operator, but because we have a hash available or a $sign, we can use directly like this. And there's still inverted quotations here, and just give a semicolon at the end. Again, semicolon, like you have noticed, I've given almost at every statement, is compulsory in PHP as well. So we do give a semicolon here as well. Now, simply doing echo, a simple string with a paragraph tag and a CSS style. We set it to bold, and now we print the value. Okay. But this time, the way we have printed the value, we have not used the plus and the variable name. We have not used the dot and the variable name. In fact, we have used the dollar variable inside this double quotations. So basically, inside your double quotation marks, what we have done is we have used the variable inside the double quotation marks directly. What should happen now? What should happen now? Control S, come back here, hit a refresh, get a value. So the first integer number, that because we converted an integer, so the first number that it read is now basically displayed here. If I hide this line, again double backslash, come back here, refresh, now I get a full date. Again, it's a string, so I print the data. Okay, you can use a string here as well. The date is control S, hit a refresh. So the date is 7th of July. Okay, so this is different from what we have done previously. Previously, we had used what we call this variable with something of a plus operator. However, in PHP, you can use the variable name directly inside a string. You can use the variable name directly inside a string with the dollar operator. You can do also same thing like here. Echo sorry, the value of, sorry, the date is dot dollar value s dot 2020, and online classes are still going, semicolon. See, now what we did, we used a string dot operator to connect the value of all variables, then dot operator, okay, then inverted quotations again start, give a space, and then we printed the remaining in string. So you can segregate the space string, sorry, Control S, refresh, let's hit a BR here, BR, Control S, we print it. The date is 7th of July and the classes are still going. So you can print it like this as well, where you segregate the string and the variable using dot operator, like we did here, or you can remove this quotation and this quotation and this dot and use the variable directly inside a string as well. Save it, refresh it, still the same output. So this is the advantage of PHP. You can do and print output using echo and variable values in multiple different ways. Okay, you can print it directly, you can change it directly. You can use get data type to get the data. You can use the set data type to set the data. Okay, remaining all arithmetic operations are also performed on strings of our or in data types. Okay, so for example, I had a little presentation. I will try to upload that. If I, sorry, here it is. Basically, I didn't go through the presentation, but the same thing is discussed here. This is just in form of notes I was uploading, and I will upload this on your LMS so you can refer to them as well. PHP material as well I will upload. So this same thing I believe we have already talked about. So variable can hold any type of value from 200 to hello to true and false, which will become our data type. You can come here, you can use echo hello world. Message hello world, you can save the string and a variable data type and then save print that echo as well. What you cannot do is you can use my string double quotation works. This would still work. I think if I move it a little bit further away, this way. Okay. So if you can read this, we can use double quotation marks for a string. We can use a single quotation marks for a string as well. Like I showed you, even if you use a single character A, it will still consider it as a string. You cannot use a double quotations and leave it blank. This would be considered as an error. Okay, so if I move it, double quotations and a single quotation. This is now considered as an error. So do make sure that strings are always either used with double quotations or single quotations. Both would work fine. Then the phrases don't mix your quotation marks. This is also important. For example, you're using this variable don't, that again has a single quotation here. In this case, single quotation start, single quotation end. This becomes a string. The remaining text again will consider as an error. Remember, PHP will give and generate errors. JavaScript, HTML, CSS were kind enough not to give us too many errors. PHP is not that kind. So if I declare a variable, QUOT quote is equals to single quotation marks, DONT, and then use this type, single quotation again, and semicolon. So for my understanding, I use a single quotations to start, single quotations to close. Okay, and now this should be okay. But once I save it, come back into my page, hit a refresh, see this, everything is gone. Because JavaScript doesn't get compiled, CSS doesn't get compiled, HTML doesn't get compiled, PHP is interpreted. Okay, it will be interpreted by your server. It will check the CSS code for any errors. If any error occur, the initial part also don't get executed and it's presented here as an error, and you can see there is no initial output. PHP will give you some error that there is an error called unexpected string on line 37. So if I come here on line 37, there is an unexpected string. So it's a good enough and very nice errors that you can debug quite easily if you understand what it basically means. There's a syntax error, unexpected quotation, and T. Okay, so there is a syntax error here. Syntax means you have incorrectly written something that are not supposed to be written in the way you have done it. Okay, the syntax has not been followed correctly. So I don't use don't here. If I need to use this quotation, I can use this thing, double quotation here and then double quotation here. Now it's all okay. Within your double quotations, you can give a single quotation. Now it's all okay. Now I save it, come back here, hit a refresh, the data is set. Okay, there is no error. Obviously, I have not printed it. So let me go and echo $QUOT. Oh, QUOT. Okay, let's just do this. I gave a space here, semicolon. Okay, there's a space here, accidentally come here, hit a refresh, again an error. Okay, now the error is again syntax error. Syntax wise, there is some mistake. According to rules of PHP, you have not written something correctly. Unexpected unode. Okay, so unexpected oot is something been written here. So we need to write that. Then there is a line number at the end as well. Meaning on line 38, there is some error of code. So just move that. Control S, come back here, hit a refresh, and now this thing is gone. Okay, that should do the trick. So this is about all we can talk about for variables and using variables in JavaScript. I think I've covered most of the concepts here. Same thing here again, when you use a string, don't mix the quotation marks. This is correct. Don't use such kind of a string marks because this will again confuse the system. This means quotation start here, quotation end here, single quotation, then again quotation start, quotation end here. So just make sure you write the quotations in a correct form. Okay. Operators, the value assignment, we use multiply, divide, minus. All operators are basically valid. You can create a variable and then you can use a variable with plus, minus, multiply, divide, on so forth. You will get output accordingly. They are all mixed up, some formatting issues. Okay, so you can use any sort of variables that you want, arithmetic operators, plus, minus, multiply, divide with your variables in JavaScript. Okay, so that's about it. I will be sharing the slides and notes on your LMS. You can find that. Any problem, any confusion, let me know in the comments down below or in your LMS, and I will try to answer those questions for now. Okay, thank you very much. See you. Let me stop the recording.